Welcome to my channel, Rise Up with Steve. Please hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. Let me tell you something real today. Something nobody likes to talk about because it makes people uncomfortable. When a woman pulls back, when she stops calling, stops chasing, stops explaining herself, that's when the truth shows up, not her truth. His. See, when everything is easy, when she's always available, always forgiving, always understanding, a man doesn't have to decide who he really is or what he really wants. Comfort hides a lot of confusion. Effort gets lazy when it's guaranteed. But the moment she pulls back, the moment she creates silence where there used to be noise, something powerful happens. A man is forced to feel. He can't lean on her energy anymore. He can't feed off her attention. Now he has to ask himself one question. Do I want her, or did I just enjoy being wanted? If he truly cares, that pullback hits him like a wake-up call. He feels the absence. He notices the quiet. He realizes the value of what he didn't protect. That's when a real man steps up. He communicates. He shows effort. He becomes consistent, not because he's scared to lose control, but because he's scared to lose her. But if he doesn't care, if his feelings were shallow, that pullback won't hurt him. It'll relieve him. He won't fight for clarity. He won't ask questions. He'll drift, disappear, or blame her for changing. And that right there is the answer she needed all along. When a woman pulls back, something very real begins to happen inside a man, whether he wants to admit it or not. Up until that moment, he may have been comfortable. He may have been enjoying the attention, the care, the consistency she brought into his life. When a woman is present, forgiving, and always trying to make things work, a man doesn't always have to examine his own feelings too closely. He can move through the relationship without pressure, without urgency, without having to decide who he really is in her life. Comfort can be a dangerous thing because it allows emotions to stay undefined. But the moment she pulls back, the moment she stops giving the same energy, the same explanations, the same effort, everything changes. That absence creates a mirror. A man suddenly notices the silence where there used to be warmth. He notices the space where her presence once filled his days. And in that space, his true feelings begin to rise to the surface. Not because she demanded answers, but because the lack of her effort forces him to feel what he was avoiding. If a man genuinely cares, that pullback will bother him deeply. It won't sit right with him. He won't be able to ignore it. He'll replay conversations in his mind. He'll notice how different his days feel without her reaching out. That discomfort is important because it shows attachment value and emotional investment. A man who cares doesn't enjoy distance. He doesn't relax when communication slows down. Instead, he feels the urge to close the gap, to fix what feels off, to step up in ways he may have delayed before. This is when you see real effort. Not talk, not excuses, not temporary attention, but consistent action. He starts checking in. He becomes more intentional. He wants clarity because he doesn't want to lose something that matters to him. The pullback acts like a wake-up call, reminding him that nothing meaningful is guaranteed. It pushes him out of comfort and into responsibility. But if his feelings were shallow, if he was only enjoying the benefits of her presence without emotional depth, her pulling back feels different to him. Instead of discomfort, he feels relief. The pressure is gone. The responsibility fades. He doesn't feel the need to reach out or explain himself. He might label her distance as drama or say she changed, but deep down, the truth is simple. He wasn't emotionally invested enough to notice her absence as a loss. And this is why pulling back is so revealing. It removes confusion. It answers questions words never could. A man doesn't have to say how he feels. His response to distance tells the whole story. When a woman stops doing all the emotional labor, when she stops carrying the connection by herself, a man is exposed. Either he steps forward to meet her halfway, or he fades into the background where he was already emotionally standing. For a woman, pulling back isn't about punishment or control. It's about self-respect. It's about observing instead of over-explaining. Many women talk themselves into staying by giving endless chances, endless understanding, and endless patience. Pulling back allows her to stop convincing and start seeing. She gets to watch what a man does when she's no longer making it easy for him. That distance also restores her balance. It shifts her focus back to herself, her peace, and her worth. And ironically, it's often in that moment of self-focus that the truth becomes loud and clear. A man who values her will feel the shift and respond with intention. A man who doesn't will let the distance grow without resistance. In the end, when a woman pulls back, she's not creating the outcome. She's revealing it. She's allowing the connection to stand on its own without her holding it together. And a man's true feelings don't hide in that moment. They show up clearly through effort, consistency, or complete absence. When a woman pulls back, it often happens after she has already tried everything else. She has communicated, explained, adjusted, and waited. By the time she creates distance, it isn't impulsive. It's quiet. And that quiet is powerful because it removes the noise that once protected a man from confronting his true emotions. Without her constant presence, he is left alone with his thoughts, his habits, and the reality of how much he was truly invested. At first, he may not notice. Some men are slow to feel lost because they're used to being pursued. They assume she'll come back, that her silence is temporary, that things will return to normal without them changing anything. But as time passes and the space remains, something begins to shift. Her absence starts to echo. The good morning texts don't come. The emotional support isn't there. The small reminders of care are gone. And slowly the comfort he took for granted starts to feel like a void. This is where a man's emotional truth surfaces. If his feelings were real, that void becomes heavy. It disrupts him. He feels unsettled, distracted, even irritable, because something meaningful has been removed from his life. He may not always express it clearly, but his actions begin to change. He starts thinking about her at unexpected moments. He wonders what she's doing, how she's feeling, and whether he waited too long to show up properly. The distance forces him to reflect, and reflection is where honesty lies. For a man who truly cares, pulling back doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like a warning, a sign that something important is slipping away, and that awareness creates movement. He reaches out with purpose instead of convenience. He doesn't just check in when he's bored. He tries to understand what went wrong. He becomes more present, more consistent, because he finally sees what's at stake. On the other hand, if his connection was based more on ego than emotion, her pulling back barely affects his inner world. He might miss the attention, but not the person. He might miss being admired, but not the responsibility of caring. In this case, silence feels easy. Distance feels natural. He doesn't feel compelled to fix anything because nothing inside him feels broken by her absence. That lack of reaction is not confusion, it's clarity. This is why distance is such a revealing tool. It strips away words and exposes behavior. Anyone can say they care when someone is doing all the work. Anyone can stay comfortable in a connection they don't have to maintain. But when effort is required, when initiative is needed, true feelings show themselves. A man who values a woman doesn't wait for her to beg. He doesn't need repeated explanations. He recognizes the shift and responds. For a woman, pulling back is an act of emotional maturity. It's choosing observation over anxiety. Instead of chasing reassurance, she allows space to show her the truth. She stops overgiving and starts paying attention. In that stillness, she learns whether she was truly valued or merely convenient. The most important thing is that pulling back doesn't change a man's feelings. It reveals them. It doesn't turn love on or off. It simply removes the distractions that were hiding the truth. And once that truth is visible, there is no need for guesses, arguments, or endless waiting. What a man does when a woman pulls back tells her everything she needs to know. When a woman pulls back, it often surprises a man because it breaks a pattern he had grown used to. She was the one who checked in, who tried to fix misunderstandings, who softened conflicts, who made space for his moods and his silence. Over time, That consistency can create an illusion that she will always be there, no matter how little effort is returned. So when she finally steps back, the shift is subtle but deeply unsettling. The rhythm of his life changes, and that change forces him to confront feelings he may have ignored or postponed. In the beginning, he may rationalize her distance. He tells himself she's busy, tired, or just having a phase. This denial is often a defense mechanism. Accepting that her pullback might be intentional would require him to admit that something in the connection was unbalanced. But as the days pass and the space remains, avoidance becomes harder. Her absence becomes noticeable not just in communication, but in emotional availability. The encouragement, the warmth, the sense of being understood slowly fades, and he begins to feel the weight of that loss. For a man who truly cared, this is where discomfort sets in. He feels restless. He senses that something valuable is slipping away, and that awareness creates an internal tension. He starts questioning his past actions. He remembers moments when he could have shown up better, listened more closely, or been more consistent. Her pullback acts like a spotlight, illuminating everything he once took for granted. The emotional distance forces him to feel the depth of his attachment, whether he was ready to face it or not. This is often the point where intention becomes visible. A man with genuine feelings doesn't stay passive. He feels the urge to close the gap, not out of fear of losing control, but out of fear of losing connection. He reaches out with clarity. He becomes more honest, more present, more willing to invest. His actions slow down and become deliberate because he understands that surface level effort will no longer be enough. The absence of her constant energy teaches him the value of what he had. But when his feelings were never deep, the experience is very different. Her pulling back doesn't create anxiety, it creates ease. The emotional responsibility is lifted. He doesn't feel the need to reflect or adjust because he never planned to fully commit in the first place. He may still reach out occasionally, but without purpose or consistency. His responses are casual, delayed, or minimal. That behavior speaks louder than any explanation he could offer. This is why pulling back is not about manipulation. It's about removing illusion. When a woman stops compensating for a lack of effort, the connection is forced to stand on its own. Without her carrying the emotional weight, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. A man either steps into the space she created or allows it to grow wider. In both cases, his feelings are revealed clearly. For a woman, this moment is about reclaiming her power. She shifts from chasing reassurance to observing reality. Instead of interpreting mixed signals, she watches action. She allows silence to speak. In doing so, she protects her energy and gains clarity. The pullback is not an ending. It's a test of balance. And whatever a man shows during that space is exactly where his heart truly stands. When a woman pulls back, it usually comes after a long period of giving more than she receives. She has been present, patient, and emotionally available, often hoping that her consistency would eventually inspire the same in return. Over time, though, she begins to feel the imbalance. Her effort feels heavier, her voice feels quieter, and her needs feel postponed. Pulling back is not an impulsive move. It is a response to emotional exhaustion. And that shift, even when unspoken, has a powerful effect on a man. At first, the change may seem small. She replies less, explains less, and no longer feels every silence. But that reduction in energy creates a noticeable absence. A man who was used to her emotional availability suddenly has to sit with the quiet. He no longer has immediate access to her support or reassurance. And in that stillness, he is forced to face how much he relied on her presence without always contributing equally. For a man who genuinely cares, this absence creates awareness. He begins to recognize the role she played in his life. The emotional safety she provided becomes visible only when it is no longer constant. He starts to feel the difference in his daily routine, in his mood, in his sense of connection. The pullback acts as a mirror, showing him what the relationship actually meant to him. That realization often comes with regret, reflection, and a desire to correct past neglect. This awareness pushes him to act, not with grand gestures, but with consistency and intention. He becomes more attentive, more communicative, more reliable. He understands that her distance is not a challenge to be won, but a signal to be respected. His effort shifts from convenience to commitment because he now sees that her presence was never guaranteed. But when a man's feelings are shallow, the same pullback reveals a difference. Truth. He notices the distance, but it doesn't disturb his inner world. He may feel a momentary loss of attention, but not a loss of connection. He doesn't reflect deeply or adjust his behavior because he was never emotionally anchored in the relationship. Instead of moving closer, he drifts further away, allowing the space to grow without resistance. This contrast is what makes pulling back so revealing. It removes the fog created by mixed signals and empty words. Without confrontation or demands, a woman learns where she truly stands. A man's response to distance shows whether he values the relationship or simply enjoyed the comfort it provided. For the woman, pulling back is an act of self-preservation. It allows her to step out of the cycle of overgiving and into a place of observation. She stops trying to be understood and starts watching what is shown. In that space, clarity replaces confusion. Whatever a man does when she pulls back reflects the depth of his feelings, not what he says, but what he chooses to do. When her effort is no longer carrying the connection. When a woman pulls back, it is often the result of an inner decision rather than an outward conflict. She has reached a point where continuing to give without receiving feels like a betrayal of herself. This choice is usually quiet. There are no ultimatums, no dramatic exits, just a subtle withdrawal of energy. And it is precisely this calm distance that exposes a man's true emotional position because it removes the structure that once allowed him to stay comfortable without fully committing. In the early stages of her pulling back, a man may sense that something is different, but not fully understand it. The conversations feel shorter. The warmth feels reduced. The emotional access he once had is no longer automatic. This creates a pause. And in that pause, his reactions begin to reveal the truth. Some men feel unsettled by the change, while others barely register it. That difference is not accidental. It is rooted in how deeply they were emotionally invested from the start. A man who truly cares feels the shift almost immediately. He notices her absence in ways he didn't expect. The support she gave, the attention she offered, the way she made space for him. Emotionally, all become visible through their absence. That realization can be uncomfortable because it forces him to see where he may have taken her for granted. Her pulling back interrupts his sense of stability and replaces it with reflection. He begins to question whether his actions matched his feelings and whether he showed up in the ways that mattered. This discomfort often leads to growth. A man with genuine feelings doesn't ignore the distance. He feels compelled to address it. He reaches out with more intention, not to regain control, but to rebuild connection. He listens more carefully. He becomes more consistent, understanding that her energy is no longer freely available without effort. In this way, her pullback becomes a catalyst for honesty and maturity. But when his interest was based on convenience rather than emotional depth, the distance feels different. Instead of reflection, there is detachment. He may enjoy the freedom from expectation. He doesn't feel driven to close the gap or understand what changed, because the connection was never central to his emotional world. His responses become sporadic, his effort minimal. The relationship fades not because she pulled back, but because there was nothing substantial holding it together. This is why pulling back is such a powerful form of clarity. It doesn't demand explanations or create conflict. It simply allows behavior to surface. A man shows his priorities through action when the comfort of being pursued is removed. He either steps forward with consistency or steps away without resistance. For the woman, this process is about reclaiming her sense of worth. By pulling back, she stops pouring energy into uncertainty and begins to protect her emotional well-being. She shifts from hoping to knowing, from waiting to observing. In that space, the truth becomes undeniable. A man's response to her absence reveals whether he valued her presence or merely enjoyed the benefits of her attention.